Hey, everybody. Welcome to your creative journey.
And we are live in 5.
You know what? You're the worst. Every week he does this to me. It's crazy. Hi, everybody. Welcome to your creative journey live. I'm Kevin Gregg. What's your name, buddy?
Me? I'm Paul Carganilla. Still.
Yes, you still are. And we got our fantastic guest with us, James Dornoff. James, say hi.
Happy holidays.
Hey. Oh my gosh. Oh, I've got a brand new setup here too. I just leaned on this. Yeah, I do. I'm standing up a little bit. Here's the cool thing, right? People get to see a little bit of behind the scenes. That literally just happened as I'm doing this. So here's the deal. I've been trying to figure out, I've been using my son Duncan's bedroom as sort of my office. As you can see, I've got some accoutrement that's in the background here. Mm-hmm. So I've been trying to figure out what am I going to do? And I think in the future, it's going to look a little bit more like your stuff in the back, Paul, where I'll try to light it on it. Anyway, we had our neighbor knock on the door and say, listen, just letting you know, I'm getting rid of a standing desk. So if you want that, and I said, let me have it. So I have it. It's an older standing desk. It's good. But I literally just leaned on it as everything just started to go down. And I went, no. So
those are awesome. We had those when I was a dispatcher, we had those and they were lifesavers. And now like even like days like today, I literally took and edited photos and made Facebook posts all day today. And it was just like, oh gosh, I got to get up and stretch, you know? So standing desks, man, I'm a huge fan of those.
So you're just at a sitting thing? You're just at a sitting thing at work?
Normally in a sitting desk. Yeah. The days are rare where I'm just sitting at my desk all day. Usually I'm out doing stuff, but today was one of those days. We just got a new chief of police and today was his first day on the job. So it was a bit of taking his photo, photoshopping those, and then all these things needed to get posted and prepped and
crazy.
Yeah.
James, standing or sitting for you, buddy? What's your?
It's when I'm at a desk. So like if I'm doing post-production and production in the office, it's usually sitting, but I'm not really at my desk much anyway. It would be around like different artists and management and doing whatever I need to do. So it's generally sitting. But I do know the advantages, and a lot of the artists generally, I would say on the vendor side, and we'll kind of go into a little bit of what that means.
Sure.
They prefer a standing.
Yeah,
you're on your feet and you're doing long days, and it's nice to be able to adjust it as needed. And if you need to lower it and sit for a while. But the ability to have it raised,
I know, right,
is key.
It's totally crazy. Now you could go the extra amount. I have seen some executives that literally have, here's too much. They have the treadmill desk.
Oh, no.
so they literally have they've got the little treadmill and it's just ridiculous. Come on.
I've seen the ball. People use that for a while. That was a thing that happened for a long time where
I
would have the ball and it's good for posture. Sure. It's good. Keeps you, if you're going to stay at your desk, at least you're working your core.
You don't realize this. I'm standing on an exercise ball right now as I do this. So I'm that good.
Have you seen the under desk elliptical things?
No, I have not.
Oh man, I looked into getting one of those when I was in dispatch, but then I was like, there's no way I can work the pedal, the radio pedal. And then
it's just a bunch.
They make them.
Hey, let's give a big shout out to people that are visiting us tonight, man. So glad to have producer Craig, as always. Thank you. Melissa, so good to see you here tonight on YouTube. Dari's in the house. We got Christina's here. Who else is here? Kelsey's here as well. Hi. Anna's here.
Meryl's here.
Meryl, love you dearly.
Hunter,
guess who else? Hey, guess who else is visiting us? James, don't get nervous. Eric Close is visiting us.
Oh my God, Eric. I'm a big fan.
Eric, glad to have you here, pal. Gosh, we're so happy to have our friends here with us tonight. Hunter and the Dirty Jacks. Look at that. Hunter's been awesome. He's been showing up here, man. Thank you so much for showing up for the thing.
Hunter's a huge part of this Audacity community, and we just love him so much. Thank you, Hunter. Welcome.
Good. So I tell you what we're going to do. We are going to go into the audio podcast right now, and then we're going to have at it. So please, if any questions come up during this, ladies and gentlemen, please let us know. I am going to say this at the top. I want to repeat this 2 times. Next week, which is January 5th, Tuesday, January 5th, we're going to be having Bonnie Utley on the show. She is a professional coach to help with business, life stuff, art stuff. She's amazing. I've worked with her before in the past. She wanted me to pass along to you. I'll say at the top of the show and the end of the show, because she's going to be our special guest. She has offered that if anyone has a specific question, something that they want to work through, like she put this out there, if there was one thing that you could get out of a podcast next week when you're working with a coach, some answer to a question, something where you would walk away from it and feel a certain way, what would you want for yourself? So if you think of that during our taping tonight, and I'll ask it again at the end, just put that either in the comment section, or you can email me at kevin@kevingregg.com, because guess what? We will answer your question live next week. So this is your final opportunity, like live here or via email. If there's a specific question of like, what is something that you wish that you could walk away from if you had access to a coach like that could help you for the hour and 15 minutes that it's on, what would that question be? So
walk
please.
Away from or walk away with?
Walk away with. Don't walk away from. Don't walk away from the podcast.
If there's anything that any issues you want to walk away from, send me those at Paul@KevinGregg.
Wait a minute. I don't have that one. I don't have that set up yet, but it could be that, right? What if you said like, I finally want to walk away from.
That should be an episode we do. How do you quit something, like Brokeback Mountain style?
That's huge, especially with where we are with things. It's nice to be able to learn how to get away from something you need to get away from. That
is true. Okay. We may have a potential episode for the future. Who knows? Here's what we're going to do. Paul, why don't you introduce us, including telling everybody what the show is about? So there you go. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Okay, we'll go live on YouTube now in 5.
No, stop it. Do I need to count it down? Are you recording too? Are you recording your Zoom?
I am.
Okay, as he checks. Okay, in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome once again to the Your Creative Journey podcast. I'm Paul Carganilla.
And I am still Kevin Gregg.
And this is still the 32 weeks later, the podcast for any type of creative. So if you're here, you're looking to get inspired. You love to dance, act, write, direct, paint, blow bubbles, freestyle walk.
Yes. Sing. Maybe you're like a ballet surfer, you know? Maybe you're like a sand castle blower.
Maybe you're a sandcastle blower. That's
sure.
Maybe
you actually make sandcastles by blowing the sand and having it come up like that.
That is interesting, and I want to watch that. Yes. And we're just here. We're so grateful that you keep joining us every week as we sit down and we just talk things out, because it is so important, no matter who our guest is, whether we have a guest or not, to make creating part of your weekly routine. Well, and even if you're setting a 6-minute timer, which I'm a huge advocate of. I don't know if you've heard me talk about that on the show.
Wait a minute. That's my bit.
Carve out any time that you regularly can make room for your creations, your artistry to flow forth from your soul. And if you don't have any time to do that, at least you can catch us anytime on the podcast or live right here on Tuesday nights usually.
I dig it, man. So glad to have you here. As Paul said, we have guests all the time. Our guest today is a visual effects artist and friend of mine, James Dornoff. Welcome to the show, buddy. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. Happy holidays.
Welcome, James. Great to meet you.
2020. Yay.
I know. What was that meme that I saw today? Wait until 2020 turns 21 and then can start drinking.
Yeah.
So, oh, boy.
I haven't been waiting at all this year.
Hey, we got to give a shout out. Corey Pollard just popped into the comment section as well. Corey, glad to have you here, man. As we start every show, we like to mix it up. We like to start with something positive. We like to start and find out what was the best thing that happened to you this week. And Paul, I'm just going to start with you and ask you, what was the best thing that happened this week to you, buddy?
Well, Christmas, of course, was wonderful. You know, scholars will tell you it is not the actual birthday of baby Jesus, but it is the day of the year that we have chosen to celebrate it. And you know, my entire life, as I told you, I was raised in the Lutheran church, but it's always been a big holiday to me, and I've always tried to keep, you know, the meaning, the true meaning of it at its core.
Right.
And this year, with everything that's gone on, I think it was just another reminder that even though the world is crazy, there is one constant, and that is that Jesus was born. And I hate to make anyone who's listening to this podcast for the first time think this podcast is about something else, but we talk from our heart, and we talk about, you know, things that are meaningful to us, and we love presents and family and gatherings and food and eggnog and spiked eggnog, and it's always important. And I just, this year, with everything going on, I really reflected on the true purpose of it, and it was just wonderful. I was home with my family, and obviously with the kids and the wife, and I just feel like the richest man in the world. And it was a wonderful Christmas that just filled my heart with joy. And that was the best part of my week. I don't know.
Buddy, that's so beautiful, man. I'll have to tell you, our Christmas was sort of the same way. It was just really beautiful. It was awesome. I have to give a shout out, and Paul's right. It's, you know, we talk from the heart and we talk about the stuff. I will tell you, I saw a sermon on Christmas Day that was from Father Mike Schmitz, if you happen to see it. And he made the the best Christmas Mass sermon I've ever heard. And specifically when he was talking about Jesus and everything like that, he made this awesome comparison to the birth of Christ and the film Taken by Liam Neeson. So here's the deal. I don't want to spoil it, but please YouTube it. I might even do it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put it in the show notes. Please do yourself a favor and listen to Father Mike Schmidt's sermon. It was beautiful. It had me crying. It was wonderful. It was just like this idea of, you know, we have something that is bigger than us. We have something that's bigger than us that's coming to save us no matter what. And that's what he's trying to do. So yes,
God has a very specific skill set.
That's it. Please, I don't want to spoil it, but you've got to listen to it. It's amazing. Well, we had a great we had a great Christmas as well. It was very low key. We got to do a little bit of social distancing with people, and it was just, you know, in light of everything that's been going on, man, there have been these moments where you get to slow down a little bit and hang out with the people that you love. And even with some of the Zoom stuff that I've had in conversations, it's been pretty awesome. So God willing that this won't be the case next year, but yeah, it was a pretty beautiful Christmas for us as well.
It was just so different in that, it was, like I said, more than any other year, just a reminder that some things in the craziness are constant and are there, and like birthdays, like time, and every year we get to slow down at these milestones and remember things and appreciate things. And I think this year more than ever, we appreciate things.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true.
For me was the big thing this year is the slowdown. Usually this time of year for me is, it's crazy. It's not for work. It's for just the different things I'm involved in at my church. You know, I'm in a choir, and we are doing so many performances. We have, you know, your Christmas Day masses, you have your midnight mass, you have the lead up to the midnight mass. So we're in a bunch of different, and then we have our Christmas concerts. So we have so much stuff going on at this season, and then it's prepping stuff for kids and for my nephew and nieces and the family. It's just, there's always so much. And this year was the first time in a very long time, at least a decade or so, where I've actually got to slow down and be, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm going to sleep in. I'm going to wake up and make brunch, and I'm going to, you know, just relax with my partner, Ethan. And we just enjoyed the holiday. It was a wonderful experience. And it was, you know, if there was something that we got this year, it was that there's a slowdown. There was a slowdown, a forced slowdown of, you can't go out. You don't need to go to 18 different houses. You don't need to go to all of these different places and see all of these different people. It'll spread out. You're going to do maybe one or two or something like that. But we just stayed in, and we did a Zoom session with my two of my brothers and my mom, and that was fun. It was nice. It was awesome. Like, okay, it was a little crazy, but mom did everything possible for technical. Why doesn't the video work?
Right. Yeah.
It was one of those where, yeah.
Your present.
No, so my brother was doing the close up of his eye because he's like, "Oh, what's happening?" You know, because they just their brother doing up the nose, and they didn't, you know. But it was nice. It was a thing where we were all just we sectioned time off, of course, and it was we're gonna focus in on this time together, and no one needs to go anywhere. No one needs to, I need to be at this place by 3. I need to be here by 5. It was, we're going to be here. We're here.
Oh,
nowhere to go.
So grateful for that during this season, instead of running around like chickens with your head cut. And an odd little fun fact, Paul, which you don't know, James actually sings in choir with John Crane, who was also a guest on our show.
Yeah.
There you go.
We're at St. Francis de Sales, so plug for them. We were. I mean, we stopped singing for our choir since last March.
No Zoom stuff for you guys at all, like no Zoom performances or anything over.
No, we have not done that yet. Yeah, now they do have a cantor and they have a soprano that still sings, and the organist still plays for the Sunday mass, but they're keeping it just very small right now. And we're all still very much in touch with each other. We have which has also been a really wonderful thing, is there's so many people in our choir group that we're messaging each other. There's emails, maybe at least once a week or once every other week of just, how's everybody doing? Is everybody doing okay? Earlier in this year, we gathered and did a little drive by one of their houses, just because it's like, we miss each other. So everybody got in their car and they sort of just drove through, and people said hi to each other. So I mean, that was a thing. It's a family that we, even if we're not seeing each other weekly like we normally do, or twice a week because we do rehearsals, we're still connected. And I think, again, that's the bigger picture. God's family. That's awesome. People being brought together, basically. And it's something we definitely miss, but we're still connected. And I think that's the wonder of it all.
Awesome, man. Well, you know what? Tonight's very special because, James and I have known each other for several years now, but here's something that I really don't get to talk to him too much about his work. Like, we see each other in social circles and we get to hang out and do all this stuff. But every once in a while, whenever I see James, it's kind of like, well, I'm working on a thing and I can't tell you what it is, right? Because he's usually involved in some pretty high level stuff. But James has a history in visual effects. Yes, Paul?
Oh, I was so excited to speak to our very first sandcastle blower.
No. Oh, sorry.
I quit.
Sorry. I might learn to do that. That does sound like an interesting thing to do.
Here's a cool thing. It almost looked like you took off imaginary headphones for a second for what I was doing. I was like kind of going, that's really nice space work, Paul.
We can visual effect it. We can do that. We can add them in. So
James, you have been involved in visual effects. Please tell us what this is, what the journey is. Paul, ask away too, man, because this is free form, man. Free form.
So I would say I've been doing this for now 20 years, which is crazy to think that. Probably, over 20 years or around 20 years. And I went to film school. I went to Chapman University, and sort of got connected with getting involved in film and learning the logistics of TV and lighting. And my specialty in film school would have been in the camera department. And my path that I thought I was going to be going into was cinematography for lighting and camera. Camera was my thing. I was a camera up for a bunch of stuff. I was a first AC assistant camera for a bunch of different things. Then I started to do director photography work.
Was the main stuff that you were working on, were you still working with film cameras, or was it starting to make the transition over to digital?
When we were shooting for our films, we were shooting on 16 millimeter, and we didn't have we did some projects on like the Super 8s and stuff like that, but we were primarily shooting with film. We lit for film, we shot on film, we exposed film. I was one of the best in the bag. I mean, again, at the school, not like the professionals that are on set right now. Those guys are magical with film. But for me, I was known for, which was nice, known for being really good in the bag for changing film, because you gotta, you're wherever you are on different locations, and you got to be able to get your hands and reload film and take out film. And if the film starts to spool or spaghetti, you got to make sure you can put it back and put it in its case, tape it up, all blind, basically all just with your hands. So you're loading it into the gates and connecting it and pulling it through all just with your hands.
That's because that's so expensive, right? Like, I mean, you blow that forget it.
You lost the day. You could, you want to make sure you don't expose it to light because it'll, the emotion gets exposed. So you would ruin the day's work. Yeah. You would ruin whatever it is, that chunk of work. So that's why you have to do it in a black bag, or what they'll have on proper projects is you'll have a dark room possibly in case you needed to do it. But yes, so in school we were doing that on, with film cameras. Yeah.
So what happened? How did you end up getting involved in this?
Oh yeah, that's good question. You guys are good at this. You're professional, that's why. How did I get involved? So I went to Chapman University. I started to, right out of college, you work on a few little small projects with your friends. I started to work at Fox Sports Network on a show called You Gotta See This, which is a Fox Sports clip show back in like the early 2000s. Okay. The company I was working for, I don't want to necessarily give them a plug, so I'm not going to. But they were the ones that did like When Animals Invade Your Home, if you guys remember that whole era. So it's like all of these, like, I don't want to say horrible, but just these types of shows that they would show on ABC or whatever, or some sort of station. And then we did this show called You Gotta See This, which was for Fox Sports Network. And while on that show, I sort of reconnected with some friends from college. And I was just running around for them. I was just, doing tape logging and stuff like that, video stuff and whatever they needed. It was production assistant running around, dropping off tapes and taking things to people. And
was the plan like, I'm going to do whatever I can just to get into the business and hopefully just work my way up into whatever?
Absolutely. I mean, my first paying gigs, again, this is a while ago, but I would do a full day's work and you'd get $50 a day. That's what you got. That's what we got. So, that was when you're working on your friends' independent films and stuff like that. And for those, I was doing lighting, and I was a gaffer on a feature, and I was a key grip, and just doing whatever you can to make things work. And you get paid whatever you can. You're like, oh, cool, I actually get paid for this instead of just doing it for free or for school credit. But at Chapman University, we actually had quite a few really great programs. We had things that actually aired. I did a TV series with them called Nightcap, and we had Ed McMahon on, and we had all sorts of people. We were interviewing all sorts of people. It was wonderful. And I was a lighting tech on that, and I was a lighting TD, and I was also also working the controls and stuff like that. So I was doing switchboard operator and whatnot. So different things. And then I was also camera op. So I was getting you get your hands on all sorts of things. And
big shout out. I have to give this out right now. Producer Craig went to Chapman University, and guess what? Eric Close's daughter also went to Chapman University.
I didn't know that Eric's closest daughter went there. That's pretty awesome. Okay,
so
great.
He's there now.
You go. That's awesome. So, hey, great film school, by the way. Yeah. Anyway, but so I got out, and it was very much a get whatever work you can. If something pays, great, yay. Okay, good. Getting your foot in the door, and then you're getting paid for something. Mm-hmm. And I had worked with some friends on in college, and he got somehow, I believe, which is really kind of the fun part, through his church, I think he met someone in production that on the new Matrix movies. And so this was Matrix Revolutions and Matrix Reloaded and Animatrix and the video. But we were doing all of these things. They were doing all those things at that time. Wow. And he told me, hey, they're looking to hire I'm trying to think what it was. They might be hiring like a coordinator or something for these Matrix movies. This is in post-production now that they had shot it, most of it at that point.
Okay, right.
And so I was like, whoa, okay, because at that time we'd heard of the first one, and the first one did really, really, really well. Right. And so I went and did an interview. It became a life-changing experience. I got away from Fox Sports Network, which would have been a whole nother life. Right. Maybe it would have been fine, but it got away from that sort of TV land and into the feature film side. And with that, I just met so many people. I mean, the Matrix movies being so heavily VFX oriented, that I just got into that world. One thing led to another. I worked on those movies, the video game, the animated Animatrix for, I think it was like a good maybe about 2 years of my life.
What were some of the things that they were having you do on those projects?
Sure. Now, I started out working on the video game, Enter the Matrix. Right. And for that, it was everything from just coordinating, helping the producer, and just whatever they needed, getting them food or setting up phone calls for certain things, doing meetings. at one point it was sound design, not me necessarily doing sound design, but taking stuff back and forth and just running things around as a sort of an assistant coordinator, just whatever they needed for me to set up meetings and get things going and have people meet and make sure we get what they needed. And it was a great experience to sort of really get my foot in on a level that was so huge to where I was before, right. Where these people like, oh, they worked on Thin Red Line and they had worked on Titanic. And you're like, oh, these are big time people. I'm like, I'm coming from something completely different. And it was neat to have these people interact with you. And for me, it was an interesting thing. It's because we had such a direct connection, and it was inspiring to say the least. And with those Matrix movies, you really kind of, again, they really were a forefront in visual effects. And so a lot of the people that I ended up really getting close with were the visual effects people. So that opened that door to the next projects. So I went from there to Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. And we ended up doing post-production in like some Van Nuys spaces in Van Nuys. And we had like, a whole arena warehouse full of artists, because they were at one point doing that show all in-house. And they had a what we would call a vendor. So there's the client side, as we say, and then there's the vendor side. The client side is the actual people making the raw material, making the material, the directors, the DP, the people shooting the material. And then the vendors are the ones that are actually making the shot production, doing the shot production. And so this place, the World of Tomorrow, for Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, they had their own vendor in-house, which was an interesting thing to see.
Because that movie was so interesting. And we'll come back, Paul, because I know that you had a question there, but that movie was so fascinating because it was so, that was like one of the first ones that was really like a lot of computer animation on it. I mean, I remember when that came out and you saw the trailers for it. I ended up not seeing the movie, but the amount of digital effects and that that was a big deal.
It was massive. And anything, so what they did is they were trying to basically film back. I mean, this is back almost 20 years, less than 20 years ago when they were shooting it, but they were basically everything except the actors was CG and maybe some of the objects that the actors would interact with, but climbing up and over things. And for the most part, most of the stuff was CG. Most of the stuff in the back and everything was just all CG. So if they wanted to make changes, it's like, well, we don't like the way that this set looks. That was a way to change it. Like, okay, This is such an experimental project. We can change it. And so I got involved in that project from my connections from the Matrix, and it just one thing led to the next. So I got into Serenity through the same connections. And then I started to work on the vendor side. So I started to I had some connections that eventually led me to Rhythm and Hues, where I really got my foot in the door at the places where they're making the shots. So it's a whole different company, it's a whole different group production of the people shooting it, and then here's the shot work for you to work on.
So Paul, what was your question earlier, and then I'll jump in with another one there.
Well, he kind of addressed it. I was just going to point out for the audience, if anybody doesn't know, the Animatrix was an animated movie that came out with the second and third Matrix movies. But when you say animated, it was mostly motion capture. And I was going to ask if you worked with a lot of the actors directly, or if it was mostly with the producers.
It depends. So like my involvement on the Animatrix, I was more in Enter the Matrix, which we did do motion capture for a lot of the recording of the actors. So we did do a lot of that. I didn't do that directly. They had already done that in Australia. They had done a lot of that elsewhere. And then it was us. We had all the material, the raw material, and then we were getting it worked on and finished and making the final animatics.
So there's an interesting thing, because of course I want to ask you about Serenity and those experiences, but I may take us off track here for a second, because I think it's a big thing, especially that happens in the industry, visual effects wise, CGI wise, but you are also seeing it firsthand, especially when you start working with vendors and when you're working with vendor groups. You see the amount of work energy, effort, artistry that goes into it. And not to open a can of worms on this, because I've had friends of mine that have been CGI artists in the past, but the amount of time, energy, and effort, and also sometimes these crazy deadlines that are issued by the studios or the production companies. And it's, I mean, there's a reason why at the end of movies now that those credits are so astronomically long.
And there's a lot more people that are involved in these projects that are not even slightly credited. And there are people that spend all night. I mean, they spend months and months and months of their time and don't get a credit. So there's a lot of people involved in all of these different facilities. I mean, you could have hundreds or thousands of people at the facilities, because sometimes the work requires you to roto every frame, every piece of hair out on every frame, so you can get your different layers and different things like that. All this work, different paint work, you have to paint out entire crews, or, you know, for, what was it? Oh gosh, it was a Ron Howard film that we did, and I just blanked on it, but there, Heart of the Sea. So in the Heart of the Sea, we had, we were doing, so, and that was when, this was when I was at a company called Scanline, on the vendor side at Scanline. And we had scenes where you had all these different camera crews, and they were shooting all these beautiful shots, but they're in each other's shots because they wanted to shoot this stuff. There were big sequences, like, you know, something falling or breaking or exploding or whatever. And you have these crews, and you have these amazing, talented artists that are able to, you know, paint out someone who has a whole boat on the water, and you're painting in water. Sometimes they you know, people are like, oh, well, they probably just rendered the water. No, we had people that we were using some places that were able to get certain things, and they were actually able, without doing 3D renders, to put stuff in. Now, sometimes we do have to do 3D renders, but the artistry of just the talent of what people were able to do. And you have lots of people doing this. And now, of course, I don't know if the 3D conversion has gone away, because some of us are like, okay, maybe bye. But that has been a thing too. They used to, there were a lot of films that were starting to be shot in stereo with 2 cameras basically. And that sort of has, like, okay, we don't need to shoot it that way. We can literally just shoot it with 1 camera and then make layers, which is a lot of work. It's thousands of people doing work and going through each frame and doing all the layers. So like me on the screen right now, you would take me out, and then you might take the couch out over here, and then you might take that plant out, all of these pieces in separate layers so that you can get a little bit of slide. And then you have someone who has to then paint what they would believe would be behind it, so that you can get a 3-dimensionality to it. You want to get parallax, so you can get some sort of motion to it, and then you can, and then basically it separates itself. It becomes, you know, something will come out.
What have been the things, because I definitely can understand, especially in your career and your skill and your craftsmanship that you've had to work on. I want to find out what have been some highlights, like mind-blowing things have happened for you. I got to hear some lowlights, some tough stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we definitely also have to touch on specifically what your specialty is that you work on. So let's hit some highlights, man. What have been things that you've just gone, oh my gosh, this is
I got to do. Yeah. I do have a lot, you know, that's the fun thing I get to tell my friends, is like, you know, when it's appropriate to tell them, it's fun. Like, you know, recent one for New Mutants, I was the Demon Bear. I was the on-set Demon Bear. So for those who had seen it, there's this character. I think it's been out for a while, so I think I can say it. I don't think it's
yeah.
But there's in the comics, there's a character, the Demon Bear, and it's this big bear. And I was the big bear on set in respects that I would wear. So what they'd have me do is they'd have me put on, I had a bear fur coat, and I would put that on, and I would go through and do all the actions that the bear would do on set, so that you had that in lighting reference. I would, you know, do turns and stuff like that, because you want to get the different lighting. You want these lighting passes and reference passes. So that's just one of those things. I'm a nerdy comic book guy. That's my world. And for me to be like, ooh, I got to be the Demon Bear on set in some respects, you know, like I got to do that is kind of a fun thing. So in visual effects, you'll often do the weirdest things. Like I've ridden on the Batmobile Batmobile. I have had the Batmobile to myself. I've had the Batcave to myself for multiple days so that I can photograph it so that we can basically build a whole CG set of it. I've been sent to locations all around the world. I mean, I'm very fortunate in that sense. My specialty is photography or some of the photography, and I'll get sent to locations so we can shoot locations and not have to bring the entire crew. So it'll often be sometimes me and maybe a LiDAR guy, or sometimes it'll just be me going to locations. Like one of the things we did for Batman versus Superman is we went to, it's Willis Tower, Sears Tower. And we got to, you know, it's not that we went to the top floor, we went to the rooftop. And the last 3 floors, you have to climb up. And we had to carry all of our equipment, and we use that for LexCorp. So all of those exteriors are LexCorp.
Wait a minute. Cause I just went to Chicago. Of course, Corey's out in Chicago right now, but right. Yes. I went there for the first time last year, and I went to the top of Willis Tower. So wait a minute. Cause Willis Tower is huge. It's one of the tallest buildings in the United States. And they've got like glass cubes where you can look down. Yeah. So wait a minute.
We're like 8 floors above that. So
wait a minute. Were you inside or outside?
Outside. We are outside. Wait a minute. Oh yeah. No, we have to get like, you know, you have to get like properly attached and whatnot, but properly attached.
How was that for you?
It's so high and above the world that you look down, and we had to be on the edge because we needed to shoot over the edge. So our job was to be over the edge and hang. And
Corey says in the comments right now, he's looking at the Sears Tower, the Willis Tower right now.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, so I've spent like, you know, you do all sorts of things. And actually, as we're carrying our equipment over certain pieces, because, you know, we wanted to basically have all 4 corners or all sides. So we brought our cameras up there, tripods, and we shot a bunch of reference material, video and reference. And so we would, you know, our cameras are hanging over the edge, and we're shooting material so that we can use that for projection and then use that as backgrounds. And we augment it, but you use that as a base plate. You use those pieces. But like, I'll do things like that. For Justice League, they sent me to one of the locations. They sent me to the Arctic Circle, Baffin Island, and it was what was that? It was like it's only like a 70-kilometer hike in and out, because we went to the I just blinked on the national park, but the national park up there, and we hike in. You can't drive in. It's only your feet can be on the ground. So it doesn't disturb anything, that you don't do anything unnatural, basically. And you just have what you have on your back. And we had a few guys help us carry equipment, and we went and photographed that whole valley for something that maybe we'll see more of, hopefully, in the new Snyder Cut. But we'll see. I hope they do, because we were out there for a good week or so, maybe a little bit longer, and we hike in. And it's like I slept out in the Arctic Circle, which was kind of neat. And I
remember when you were going to that, man. Like, I remember you were scared, right? It's scary because you're just kind of going, wow.
While we're out there, you have to go through like polar bear training. And it's like, I mean, it's things that we do for our work, but it's like, you're going to be out in the wilderness, and you might come across polar bears. You need to know how to deal with them. And so we had to go through training, and the person training us was just dead-eyed. Just like, this is what they do all day. They're like, here, watch a video. This is what you do. If the polar bear approaches, you need to grab hands with other people, become big, and go away, polar bear, go away, polar bear, get really loud. And then what you have is they might have a stun gun, or you have an electric fence to keep them away from the food, and blah, blah, blah. We look to our guides and go, oh, so we have a pellet gun or a stun gun or electric fence. And they're like, no, we don't have any of that. So we go out there, and this is all going to sound weird. Again, these are things you do for your work. This sounds really weird. I hope this isn't too morbid.
That's fine.
Okay. They give you your toe tag. So in case you fall in between, some sort of rocky structure, so you have your toe tag on you, so they know in case they might find your body years later or whatever.
Wow. It is. So you wear it on your toe, in your shoe.
You have it on, you have it on your person. Yeah. I don't remember. I don't think I had it on my.
So you basically,
but you had it in your wallet. You had, because in case everything goes away, like the name and stuff like that, they have it really where it's like it won't necessarily decompose easily.
That is crazy.
Did you tell the polar bear fighter trainer that you were already a demon bear?
I said no. You know what? But I hadn't been
he hadn't been demon bear yet.
Hadn't been demon bear yet.
Okay, so my next question is: did the polar bear fighting training help you get into the demon bear mindset and character?
Yeah. Of course, because you want to be big and tall, and you want to just be
scary. That is crazy. So crazy, right? But I mean, it's something.
Those are adventures. I mean, we do things in visual effects where we get to go to locations that they might not want to send the rest of the crew to because it's too dangerous or it's too expensive. And now you're going to see that a lot more with where we are right now with virtual production. These are things where now they're going to want to send, small teams of people to locations, shoot the stuff, and then we'll shoot with all the different lighters and grips and electrics and the makeup department and hair and actors and stuff like that. And the camera crew will have all those guys in London, but you go over there and the 3 of you or the 6 of you go and shoot all of this stuff and then come back and all those blue screens. That's what we're going to put behind.
So very interesting. I'm going to get nerdy for a second.
I hope I can help.
I know you will, because I know you're a big comic book guy. I know that.
Okay.
Here's a question. I wonder if you've experienced it yet. So the stuff that they're doing with the Mandalorian right now, right? Yes. Especially when they have
walls. Yeah.
So for those people that don't know this, and you can now look on YouTube. I remember when I first saw the stuff, like it was crazy, but they basically have like these light up LED screens that even they can sort of curve them and stuff at times, but it's almost like I'm going to do terrible justice explaining it, but because as the actors walk past this, the camera is able to recognize them and then also adjust the background behind them so it matches up. Yep. And if you look at the Mandalorian, like all of that stuff that you're seeing for the most part is a lot of these LED screens that then they're coming in and painting. My question is, number one, have you been able to be exposed to that type of technology yet? And also, do you think that they're going to be able to do this with people actually going out and grabbing the footage and also incorporating that in digitally? I know that the tendency that's happening, because the digital artistry is getting so amazing, right? So it can seem so real, but have you gotten a chance to experience that yet? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I have not experienced the ILM side of it. There's a process. There's sometimes what we do in driving sequences called poor man's process. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that, but they'll have like the LED panels just far enough away where they can be nice and blurry, and they'll project footage of so that when people are doing their talking scenes, they'll have that. But that's so that they can actually be lit by what's in the environment. And that's the big key factor to what those LED walls do, is they light the environment. They give you the reflections of those things that you're supposed to have right then and there. It's massive. It's huge. No, I haven't experienced it. It's a whole new world of virtual production. And yes, there are a lot of people working on a lot of really, really new and great technology where they're going to go out and capture locations. That's a big thing. That's a upcoming thing. The guys that do a lot of the LiDAR set scanning, those guys are starting to develop more and more about going to locations and capturing them, not only just for shooting purposes, but for location scouting. You want to have a location scouting, and you want to have, we know we want to shoot in the let me think, like the Capitol building, or we want to shoot at these. Okay, great. We're going to send a small team there. Mm-hmm. They're going to capture it as much as they can. There's always cleanup you have to do. There's always visual effects, additional visual effects. It's not that it's shot one and done. There's always cleanup and things to enhance, and you need to light it and change it and color process it. So there's always things to do, but you can look at stuff, or you can do a location scout without having to even go to those locations. You can do those meetings. You can go and do those things by saying, we want to go here. So now location scouts are going to be teamed up with certain, which is interesting because it's this whole collaboration, which is kind of a fun collaboration that you didn't really see before, but they're going to be teamed up with those guys. and they're gonna be like, we can pull the files for this, pull the files for that, get us that background. You know what? Let's see what this what does it look like behind us? And then they're gonna, you know, they're looking at monitors or they're looking at whatever they are for locations. Great, we want to set a camera here. This is the vista that we want. This is that location. Or you're out in the desert or something like that, and you're like, okay, great. We're gonna want cameras over there. We're gonna want cameras over there. Oh, what's it gonna look if we pull back? And then, you know, you're gonna be able to pull back in that. It's gonna be a way for people to set up. So when they go to locations, they might be in quicker. They'll basically get through it quicker. And if they didn't get all their stuff, like we had 2 days at this location, we needed 3, you're going to be able to get that third day by setting it up and doing the LED walls and doing whatever else you can. So it's going to be a whole combination of skills that come together to, you know, basically that are going to work together for virtual production. I mean, it's just it's a whole new entity. I haven't got as involved in it as I probably should, but I'm keeping my eyes and ears open for it because I know it's going to be more and more. I'm personally, if they want to do something with me, it's like, send me to those locations. I love going and photographing. You know, that's my specialty, is just go to locations. You know, I've been to Chicago a bunch of times where it's like, they'll put me in the Millennium Park or wherever they are, and I'll go and photograph all of these beautiful buildings, and then we'll repurpose them and we'll make a whole cityscape out of it. I mean, we used it for Batman versus Superman. We've used it on a few different things where you capture locations. And sometimes in capturing, there's, you know, if you see that crazy person shooting just weird things going down the line of, and I'm, you know, it's not just like 40 feet of stuff. I'm doing the entire city. I'm going down and doing front face capture or angled captures of all the buildings, lows and highs and whatever. You're capturing all these different pieces, and then you move 10 feet and then you do it again. Yeah. And you might see that person like, what are they doing? Or you see the camera, you know, they'll see me on set often, and people are starting to pick up on it. But I'll be like shooting pictures of the ground. And they're like, what? Okay, I can get why you're shooting the set, because you want lighting reference. You want to see where the camera is in place of the actor, because, you know, we're on a 40 millimeter or we're on a 200 millimeter. It's a huge difference on where the perspective is. So I get it. You want to know, oh, okay, look, it was a 40 millimeter because he's not that far away or whatever to the actor. So sometimes I'll shoot pictures of the ground. And the people are like, why are you doing that? Like, it's because we have mats, we have stunt mats on the ground, and we need to clean up those mats. Those mats we need to be able to have flat textures or whatever it is, and paint that, all those lines, all those mats that we have that people are like fighting on or landing on. You got to take those out. So it's like you'll often, visual effects person on set always has so much to do. There's always so many different things for them to watch out for, to, you know, just be involved with, always listening. Oh, we'll just do that in post. That's the worst thing. I hate hearing that. I hate hearing, oh, we'll just do it in post. It's like, maybe talk to me, let me know so that I can make sure to get the raw materials in this time, in this lighting, at this moment, with these setups, with these different props and things like that. So I can get the right materials for you so that we can do it in post. And not have to try to create everything CG. And find those objects, get those props, because I can go and shoot it right then and there. So you're always listening, you're always doing, there's always something for you to do. That's the game with visual effects right now, is there's so much stuff to do in our world, and all the different types of photography that we do reference high dynamic range imaging, which is the HDRIs that we shoot so that you can use those for reflection passes and color washes and environment washes and
crazy, man. It's hard. Paul, were you gonna ask something there in a second, Paul?
Totally nerdy. I mean, not nerdy, but like people, I'm the only one who cares. Do you need permits and stuff when you go out and do that, like a regular film shoot? Do you need to close down locations, or you just go and you do it?
Usually I go, if it's a proper film, I'll go with a location manager who has done the proper paperwork and things that I don't have to think about. Right. And they will get the permits. So we do. There's no way you're getting on top of Sears Tower or Willis Tower without those things. Absolutely, on those locations. And for a recent project, I was all over. I was on like 30 or 40 different rooftops in a major city shooting reference for something that'll come out this next year or so. You have to absolutely abide by the city regulations and get permits and things like that. But again, not something I would deal with. That would be something producer or location managers would deal with. But Have I gone to locations to go and capture stuff? Yeah, absolutely. Like, okay, this is a place where I can go and get something that I don't, we're done with the set day or whatever it is, and I'll go back and I'll shoot some stuff there. So yeah, absolutely. It depends. Like you'll see the formal stuff and the informal stuff, and sometimes the informal stuff is literally just get some snaps, get some reference.
Right. And when you go out on your own like that, do you feel like a red shirt on the USS Enterprise?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is so, anything could happen. Sorry. I hope I don't say anything I'm not supposed to, but
whatever. You're
right?
good.
This is years ago, so we're okay. So BVS, Batman versus Superman, we were in a location where there was this they did a big, massive fight for Doomsday and the Trinity, the Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. And in that sequence, they were fighting it was like in this very kind of sort of quote unquote abandoned, like, I want to call it like warehouses and things like that, where things were exploding all around. And we needed to go back there and capture that so we can have all of this digital mapping. And it happened to be a location that was neighboring a still, I'm trying to think of it, like a still workshop, something that was not something that they wanted people to photograph, because it's not that it was like something high tech or something like that, but it was just that we don't know who you're working for. So we constantly had the police picking us up as we were going through the location. And we're like, no, we're part of this production. No, they were here the other day shooting. You guys, who are you? We don't. So like, no, we are. And we'd have to wait. And like, you guys need to leave. So we, sometimes, yes, you are at the whim of hoping that the people who are supposed to do their job are doing their job. And that you just need to keep going and get what you can. And then you'll often hear from, sometimes not from this show, but from other shows, I won't say, you'll hear from the producers, yeah, we didn't really have a permit for you.
That's it.
Like, I put myself in, I was talking to the security saying, no, I'm good to be here. So yeah, sometimes it gets you in trouble, but never anything crazy.
Most challenging things that you've had, and I guess specifically, not why were they challenging? I can guess that a lot of it has to do with communication with the production team or asking for too much, but what have been some of those most challenging things?
Sure. There's certain shows, and depending on the type of show that you're doing, like Live by Night, was the directive for us was be invisible, don't be seen. And sometimes that's hard because you're trying to just do your job, and just like everybody else on set is trying to do their job. And when you're being told, don't be seen, it's kind of hard because it's like, we need to get a ball pass. I don't want to sneak in a ball pass. This is the silver and gray ball that you guys might see sometimes. Mm-hmm. And those things are for various reasons of why we have them, for reflections and then the intensity of lights and different things. And whoever wants to know specifics, I can go in further.
James, what was, and without capping on the production or anything like that, what do you think was the intent behind that?
Because they don't, a lot of there's a big thing for people in certain projects to say that there isn't any visual effects in this movie. Nolan is known to do certain things like that, and not all of them, but there is this, we don't do visual effects, this isn't a visual effects film, this is all filmed naturally, and then you end up being 1,200 shots of visual effects.
Can I tell you where I got the most disappointed with that was when Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was coming out. They did marketing where they swore up and down, don't worry, we're going back to practical effects. And you saw that movie and went, you are liars.
Yeah. You don't get those things from practical. You don't get certain things from practical effects. And often the work we'll do is invisible effects. And those are things that you guys would never know we do. It's cleanup. It's a lot of things. I mean, it's in John Adams, it's taking out the Band-Aids of Laura Linney, because something happened to her and we now need to take out Band-Aids all, on every shot. Or we need to do whatever. It's like in Hereafter, I'm going to be in trouble for these things, but we'll do things where we even change the director is asking us to change the performance. So we physically go in, we go into the actual raw materials and change their performance, raise their eyebrows, act for them, cry. We did the tears for the kid in Hereafter. We changed the performance of I'm blanking on the French actor. We, this is a weird little moment. If anybody had seen the Clint Eastwood Hereafter, there's a scene where the main actress, she almost drowns, and she has to spit up water. And they were like, no, we're never going to see her puke. We don't want her to see her puke. Well, guess what? The editor decided he wanted to see the shot of her going, ugh. Well, nothing's coming out. So what they did is we set up elements, and we'll do element shoots, and we'll do our tech viz, and we'll match camera positions and lenses and all these things, because that's our job, is to get that data. That water's coming out of my mouth. We did all these different things to get the water, and then they would roto out the elements from my mouth. Mind you, I didn't have the facial hair. Wow. So I tried to keep it as nice and clean as possible. Wow. And then we add that water coming out of her mouth. But like little things like that, where it's like, oh no, it's all practical. They didn't do the bruises on her. We did those. We did a whole mapping. I mean, people can look this stuff up. You can see the mapping, the skin mapping, the facial mapping of all the things that we did for these projects. Yeah. You know, look at people's reels. It's kind of fun to see. It's like, oh wow, we thought that was real. So sometimes there's a lot of invisible effects. Sometimes it's obvious it's effects, because we're blowing up, you know, I've blown up the White House on a bunch of projects, which is really weird. Like, I seem to know the White House really, really well. I've done it in Man of Steel. Maybe that was Batman versus Superman. And then we also did it in 2012. And I've done it in, I feel like, another project where you learn, oh, great, we're going to blow it up again. Okay, great. So it's all these different things that are obvious effects, but then there's a lot of things that are invisible, like environments. We shot John Adams, a lot of the water sequences of where they're on the boat, and we shot that in, I think they shot that in fields in Virginia. So they're just grassy fields. We're the ones adding all the water, all these things that you would have no idea. There's a scene in Avengers where the helicarrier lifts off. They shot that on cement pads I think it was in New Mexico. Yes. And we are the ones who add obviously we recreate the entire ship, and we added all the water. They didn't shoot that anywhere near water. It was literally just things that, again, but some of those are obvious. You're not going to necessarily create a helicarrier that lifts off because it doesn't exist. So certain things are obvious, but there's a lot of invisible effects. So often what happens, there's this, back to what you're asking, is there's an ask that, oh, well, we don't do visual, everything's natural, everything's in camera. But it's as if we're the bad guys. Right. We're there to clean up, we're there to band-aid, we're there to put the pieces together, we're there to fix things. And it's very much like, you're bad, we don't want you here. So there's often cases on lots of projects that we're not welcome. This is something that I'm hoping we will eventually correct, is we are non-union. We are coming into these projects and we don't get the benefits that everybody around us gets. Sometimes we don't get paid overtime. We don't get paid, we'll work 16-hour days and we get a day's rate, or whatever it is that they give us. We don't get meal penalties. We don't get all sorts of things that everybody else around us gets. Yeah. And sometimes we're not welcome in that sense because, oh, you're non-union. But I'd say most of the crew members, camera department, script, electric, everybody wants us to be part of that. But I think we get taken advantage of. And so often there's that case of this is a non-visual effects movie. And I'm like, well, if it's non-visual effects, why am I here? Why am I on here making sure we get the things that we need? It must have some visual effects because I'm here. Yeah. So but people, there are a lot of people that like to say, I didn't need visual effects to do my movie. And I think, and that's okay. That's okay. But don't say you didn't need visual effects and then come back to us after and say, well, we want you to fix this. We want this. We want this. We don't like how this was a very big visual effects movie, but they'll come to us with the weirdest requests, like Immortals, a Tarsem movie, which I love working with him. He was a very interesting guy to work with. He did The Cell. He did some really fun projects, and they hired a costume designer that is really well known to do these really eccentric costumes and hair pieces and headpieces. Yeah. And then they come to us and say, we want to change out the head. We don't like all the head. It's not responding well. We want to change out all the head pieces. I'm like, that's a massive undertaking. Well, what does it cost to do it? Okay, we're going to go through the shots and figure out and give you, bid. We'll give you the details of what it's going to cost to change it all. But it's all this different tracking, and then you're going to have to repaint everything behind the headgear. It's a ton of stuff. But they'll often come to us for stuff, and you're like, we're not the enemy. We're just doing what's being asked of us. If you're seeing these explosions and this happened this way, it's because that's what it was directed to be. We're there to do whatever you want us to do. And if you can't do it on set, then we'll help you. Live by Night, we did all the blood and blood hits. We did all of the gunshot wounds because it takes too long to do the squib hits, to clean up the actors after the squib hits, and to have the costumes and have multiple sets of costumes. So we're not the enemy. And I think that often is the case, is that, we don't have visual effects. We don't do visual effects. And I think you see that a lot.
Here's a couple questions for Eric Closes in the comments. And of course, he's talking about, he's got to use some of the LED stuff before when he directed stuff in Nashville, which is great. He asks this, is there a union for you guys, or is everything in your field non-union? Is everything in the field non-union for visual
effects? Everything in our field is blanket non-union. Now you can have the VFX editors working in post can technically get into the editorial union. But right now we're all non-union, and I'm hoping that doesn't stay that way. But right now, that's kind of where things are. We are non-union right now.
Sorry, James, do you work for like a company, or are you a freelancer that just by word of mouth you pick up new gigs?
It depends on what I'm doing, but I have had many years where I'm on the vendor side, and they'll hire me out for projects. Or if I'm doing post-production as a post-production like associate producer or VFX producer, I'll be on the vendor side, like at Scanline or at I was at Rhythm and Hues, Cafe FX. Those are the big ones that I've been at. But for my set side of work, I'm my own entity. I am since I'm not on the vendors, I haven't been at the vendors for probably 5 or 6 years, maybe longer. I've sort of been my own entity. So people just know to call me, or I've worked with certain supervisors that use me on different projects or send me to locations, or word of mouth, or just friends who, hey, we're doing this, or you get a lead for projects. But I've been on my own since for the last 5 or 6 years, maybe longer, probably longer.
Right. Here's my question for you. If somebody was interested in getting involved in this, or if it was you talking to yourself 20 years ago, what would you be telling either your younger self, or what would you be telling somebody that's getting involved in this line of work?
I would say that it's such an amazing piece of the filmmaking and TV making puzzle that you get to be involved in some of the most amazing magic. You literally get to see the magic if you're doing, let's say, on the vendor side being the facilities that actually do the shot production, go through the pipeline and render the shots, clean up the shots, do all the shot work, and then they submit it to the client side, which is the one that is doing the approvals, or like, okay, know this, or they're giving the supervision. You get to see the magic. And as an artist, as if you are looking to be an artist, a visual effects artist, you're generally going to go in that direction. It's amazing to be there when you get that awe factor, when it suddenly starts to come together. You've got your renders, and you're now comping stuff. They're comping stuff together, and you see this, and you're like, oh wow, that is going to be so huge. People are going to love that. Right. It's so amazing. It's so neat to see that. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of unsung hero work, if that's the right way to say it. You are not going to get the recognition. You're going to be killing, as they call it, kill your baby. You're going to have shots that you have to get a thick skin for. You eventually have to. You'll work on sequences or shots that they'll be like, okay, we cut that sequence. And it's just that dry. You stop, we get the order, stop working on all those shots. All that massive thing that you have spent so much of your time and energy on, it's done. We're now that sequence is on hold. We're not working on that. There's a lot of good and bad to this industry, but you get to be, as I was starting to say, you get to be involved in the pre-production, the production, and the post-production often. And, it's like, depending on what you're doing for the show. If you're working on set, you're involved in the production. But if you're working if you're a VFX supervisor, often you're there during conception. You're there when they're figuring out how to shoot it, what to shoot, what pieces to do previz for, what's going to be shot in camera on set, and what you're going to do CG, carry it through to production, actually shooting it on the day. Things changed, got to be ready to go, and on a whim go, okay, if we can't do it that way, then we need to do it this way. And so you got to be ready to think on your feet, ready to go. And then in post-production, after they have at least some sort of edit so that you can kind of see what work you're going to need to do, putting all those pieces together, and working with the editor and the producers and the director to put the pieces together and get the vision that they want, and you get to see the entire process. Yeah. And that I don't think is in any other department other than directing and producing, but even then you are hands-on in that aspect. You are seeing every piece, and I think that is a real blessing in this industry, in the visual effects side, that you get to be as involved through the entire process, because most of them are pre-production and production. Like SFX, special effects, is rigging all the stuff for explosions and creating all the different things, like people confuse. One thing is my pet peeve is people go, oh, you do special effects. I'm like, no, I do visual effects. Right. Special effects is on set, practical effects. So they're doing atmosphere, they're doing opening doors, running water, explosions, blood, anything that would happen practically that you need mechanically. These guys are geniuses. These are the real guys that do amazing work with explosions and all these crazy things and rigs to make things work. And you're like, wow, it's a whole different brain. It's a whole different thing. So that's why it's like, I hate when some of those things get crossed, because it's like, no, we do different things. We'll take the stuff into post and clean up. In conjunction with those guys, we'll help the explosions. We'll take out all their rigging. We'll take out all the stunt rigging. We'll do all that stuff, but they're different things. So yeah, some departments do pre-production and production, but it's rare that you would need someone who in the different departments, like makeup, hair, any of the different crafts, to go into post-production, because post-production is really just going to be editor, director, producer, and visual effects, right, and sound. So
what do you think the future is for you? Is it continuing on this way, or you still have an itch to direct, or
no?
What do you think? No,
I actually was never interested in, at least from what I know of myself, I'm not interested in directing. I've always been interested in photography. That was sort of the thing that I learned in film school, and to carry that through into visual effects has always been kind of neat, because my world before I got into this was comic books and movies, and to now combine the two into this, where it's like we get to be part of the creation. I get to live in Gotham. I get to live in Metropolis. I get to live in Marvel and DC and all sorts of different types of movies and world. That's the fun thing for me, to go travel when it's safe to travel again, of course, but to go and be involved in these projects, where we get to create this world. But yeah, I would say it's camera department / visual effects, where visual effects photography and on-set management and whatever it is. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I think at some point I just because the body can only do so much, it's hard to be on set sometimes, and those days are really long and really hard. But ideally I would do this for maybe another 10 years if it's possible, to do the set work and travel and do whatever makes sense, if it makes sense for me to do so, and then maybe go back to the vendor side and manage and help out wherever it made sense. I'm not a guy that's ever really been on the box, as some people might say, where they're artists that are actually doing the work. I do a little bit of Photoshop stuff, but I'm really an on-set, physical, hands-on guy. I am old school filmmaking for new technology, well, somewhat new technology. So that's sort of my forte. Right. And going and doing photography and capturing environments and figuring out, like for Penny Dreadful, figuring out what do we need? We're looking at this work. What do we need while we're there? Because when they're going and shooting the stuff, you need to be ready, and you need to get the stuff that they're shooting right then and there. And you need to make sure you get your passes, your clean passes, whatever it is, textures in that lighting reference while it's there, while the set is built. Yep. So that's my forte. That's what I do, and I like doing that. I'm right there in the mix. I'm right there, with the gaffer, the key grip, and the DP, and sometimes the director, just figuring it out. What do we need? You want that knife to basically fry from here to there? Great. So just have the actor do this. We're gonna do a digital knife. I'm gonna go, shoot a bunch of passes and things like that on the knife. I'm going to bring a ball, do a ball pass from X to Z, down the line. And then I'm going to shoot reference of that knife sticking in that wall so that I can see, because then we'll eventually cut to that. So nice. Like you just figure out stuff on the fly. And what are we doing with this camera? Okay, let me think. Give me a second. Okay, great. Well, if we do this, if we just move the camera over a little bit, you save thousands of dollars because you don't now need to do a whole set extension and all these other things. So it's like, it is the little things, because people are on set are often just they're thinking about the things that they need to think about for them, and so you're there to say, if you just do this, you might save some money, or you don't need to make a visual effect. So not only am I there to make sure we get the things that we need, but it's also to help them say, oh, if we just do it this way, or if we put a, just put a flag there so that it's blocking the light, so we don't have this flare on this camera, because to clean up that flare, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of reconstruction of a shot. So like if we do that, I'd rather paint out a flag and add a piece of wall than have to do something, whatever. So you're there to help necessitate the financial need also of what you have for visual effects. Like, okay, if we're doing visual effects, what can we do and how can we do this? So that's what I like. It's
outstanding.
It's fun. Yeah.
Well, as producer Craig was saying this, it's so cool to hear about this side of the production process, because you don't get to hear it. And I just want to say thank you for all of the hard work that you do that we don't even recognize on a whole bunch of these movies that we love. So anything that you can, I know you usually can't tell what you're working on next. Is there anything that you can give us a little bit of a tease that you're
yeah, there's I'm excited to see Godzilla versus Kong, because I can't wait to see how some of this stuff works.
Good.
I just came back from a shoot for Denzel Washington directed, which was neat to work with him on Journal for Jordan. We did some additional photography for Eternals, and those are upcoming projects that I'm excited to see. You get to do your little piece on some of these things, and you're curious. It's always fun to see how does it actually ultimately come out.
Good.
So those are some upcoming.
And I hope we get to see some of your work in the Snyder Cut of Justice League.
Yay, me too. We'll see. I did lots of different pieces for Justice League that didn't make the Joss Whedon cut. So there'll be there's bound to be some stuff. So I'm excited to see what comes up, and yeah, it'll be fun. There's
Good. James, an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, man. A fantastic. Stick around, because we're going to talk with our YouTube folks in just a second. But gosh, pretty darn awesome. Paul, what do you think of that?
I thought it was fascinating. I've never worked with a visual effects person until this last movie that I made. And it wasn't anything. Well, it was a ghost story, so we would have orbs and shadows pass by. But the most valuable stuff to me in post was being able to. Our shooting schedule was so hectic, and we had two crews shooting in a hotel at the same time. In one particular scene, one crew that had shot this part of this scene left the door open, and the other crew had it closed, and so the scene obviously wouldn't work that way. And a visual effects artist went in and made the door closed throughout the scene, even though the camera was moving. And that just blew my mind as an actor director. You don't think of that. You don't think that people out there can do this magic. And I learned people out there can. And that's why it's been so fascinating to talk to you tonight. You're like a visual and a production problem solver for movie sets.
That's a great way to say it. That's exactly what we are. We tend to work with production, not, we don't necessarily need to be hidden. We're part of the show. We're part of the same thing. When we're working on a film together, we're all wanting the same thing, a good project.
So cool.
Outstanding. Hey, speaking of that, Paul, you got some stuff that's coming up here. Well, we got a lot that's coming up here this week on Vodacity Network, don't we?
Not a whole ton. Well, Thursday night we have our regular Hunter's Love cast from his acoustic cabin. He's got an hour of acoustic music for you Thursday night, which is New Year's Eve from 6 to 7. But then it's our big flagship show of the year, our New Year's Eve show from 7:30 to 12:30 live, and you can only get it with your pay-per-view ticket.
How do I get a pay-per-view ticket? Where would I go?
Thank you for asking, Kevin. It's at VaudacityEvent.com. You pay $20 one time, and that'll help us pay all our musicians. We set up a whole live show we've already recorded, but we're also going to be on the air live, doing all the improv comedy, doing the other live music, actual live music, while intersplicing with the big band set that we did. It's going to be a great party, and where else can you go? You can't go anywhere, so drink up, dress down, get a pay-per-view ticket, and hang out with us on Thursday night for 5 hours for $20. That's like $4 an hour for great entertainment. Totally a bargain. Join us there. And then I think that we're taking a break after that.
Good. But, Paul has been working so hard this year, man. You have been a trooper. I mean, you're going like 5 nights a week on this thing, right? For the most part.
Yeah. Tell my wife about that. She'll be thrilled. But this coming Friday night, this is huge because we've talked about it on the show. We're finally, it's been the end of a 4-year journey with my film that I was just talking about, The Haunted Man. We kickstarted it. We shot it 3 years ago, and I've been dealing with all the post stuff while starting a new career and all that. And hey, yay, indie projects. But we're finally get the opportunity to share it with our Kickstarter backers on Friday night. And so I'm super excited about that. Kevin, I'm so glad you've agreed to join us and do a quick Q&A with a bunch of cast and crew members afterward. And that is something we could definitely talk about on this show next week, because that's going to be awesome.
Huge, buddy. Huge. Well, congratulations. Hey, if you want to help out the show and you've enjoyed episodes like tonight with interviewing James, you can always go back and listen to other past episodes at yourcreativejourneypodcast.com, or you can take a look wherever audio podcasts are found. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's all over the place. Take a look. If you can do us a favor, particularly on Apple Podcasts, write us a positive review. Give us a like. That way it just helps the algorithm get it out to other people. At the very least, go take a look at yourcreativejourneypodcast.com and just share the links. Share these episodes with other people. If you happen to be talking to somebody who's like, oh gosh, I always wanted to get into visual effects. Oh my gosh, we just listened to this dude. You've got to listen to this episode. So that really is, ladies and gentlemen, the best way that you can help us. So pass it along. James, a pleasure to have you on the show tonight. Thank you so much, brother, for sharing part of it. Paul, can't wait to see the movie this week. Super, super proud of you, and always a pleasure to do the show with you.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks for introducing me to James. James, it was great to meet you and hear about you.
Nice to meet you as well.
And
very good.
Look forward to me asking you to come sing on my Saturday night show sometime.
I dig it. All right, audio podcast people, we will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the show. We will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Play that cool music from the Swells.
All right, that's the end of our audio podcast. Thanks to everybody on the YouTube stream. Give it up for James. He's a rock star. James, you didn't have to be nervous at all. This guy was so nervous about doing this thing. Are you kidding?
Awesome.
Stuff.
Are you guys so good?
Well, this is the big thing, man, is that I know you're just such an awesome conversationalist. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it's such a natural fit.
Well, it's like talking with you. It's like, it's great. It's like talking about stuff with my friends. So, again, you guys made it very, very easy, and you guys are very professional and good at your job. So very good.
We appreciate it. Just getting shout outs from people that are charity. Says, thanks for coming, James. So fun hearing about your job. Corey Pollard has split. It's late over in Chicago right now. He had to get to bed, right? But he said, James, it's been beautiful to hear you. You're so passionate about your work. He passed out. Eric Close is on here, of course. People just giving you a big shout out for thanks for sharing all of this inside stuff, man. It's pretty cool. One more big shout out again to all of our people that are on here. Again, next week, Bonnie Utley is going to be on. Coach, she's business, artistic coach, like life coach. She's amazing. So think about it. Even if you don't answer it here, you can send your questions to me at kevin@kevingregg.com. If there was something that you wanted to get out of the show next week and have a question answered for yourself, something personally that you're going through, maybe there's a struggle that you're dealing with, right? Maybe there's something that you're dealing with artistically, or as we talked about at the top of the show, maybe there's something that you're dealing with personally or whatever. What's something, if you were to at the end of the show walk away with like an actionable item or something like that, what would you like to get from Bonnie? Because she will answer it live here for us next week, so I'm really looking forward to that.
If there's anything you want to vent about, something you want to quit, go ahead and email me at paul@kevingregg.com.
One of these days, Paul, I'm going to set it up for you, and you're going to go, what are you doing?
Don't even ask you to start forwarding it to my actual email address.
I'm just going to start forwarding it all.
Where are these coming from?
What are all these? I send you like a little phone in the mail and then just say, this is your other work phone. So you got to do that. Guys, thanks so much for being on there. I don't think that we've got any other questions on the thing. As always, thank you to producer Craig for always fielding that stuff. He was giving tons of, what was he linking to some of the new movie stuff.
It's like Animatrix.
Oh,
that's it.
Whatever we talk about, he just throws it up. But
he
thought that Escape from New York was Independence Day, which I kind of get. Like they escape from New York in Independence Day. So.
No, James would have been too young to be working on visual effects for Independence Day.
Yeah, I did 2012 with Roland Emmerich though, so okay. I did get to work with him.
Now listen, answer this. Oh my gosh. So two things before I lose you. Number one, I heard this about that 2012. Is it true that the shot that you see that they used for the trailer, which was the Tibetan thing, right? Where the monk is up in the Tibetan mountains and the big flood comes. I heard that was a pre-done shot that they purchased from another company that they plugged in. Yes.
Absolutely. The water coming off is flow line produced scan line shots. We did all of those shots. Those are shots that I remember getting the scaling of the maps for the mountain ranges and putting the monk in the proper place. We did all that stuff. That whole sequence is very, very much.
Okay. But it was done for the movie 2012.
Absolutely.
Okay, because I had heard another story, which was like somebody saw that and said, oh, we're going to buy that, and now we're going to use that for the teaser trailer and then make the movie. So I am wrong.
All right, I got another question. Is it true that 2012 is going to be the end of the world when it comes?
No, they messed up the numbering. It's
2021. They mixed it up.
Oh, right. It might be.
Oh no, they flip-flopped it. 2021.
No, that's not.
That's how tricky 2012 was. They transposed the last two numbers. Those sons of guns. Hey man, what was just real quick? Serenity. What was the Serenity experience like? Was that good for you? I mean,
amazing. So working on that project was, for me, working with Joss Whedon. It was his first feature film. And at the time, from my experience working with him was wonderful, amazing. Yeah. It was kind of awe-inspiring because he was doing all those really amazing TV shows, Buffy and Angel.
I know.
It was really, really cool to work with him and to be there during the final moments. Being there for basically the post-production of it.
Yeah.
And to make this amazing TV series, Firefly. Yeah. Making the movie, and it was for me one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite movies that I got to work on because I love that series.
Yep.
And to get the feature for that series is really, really great. And the experience of working on that movie was wonderful. It was
that series was so good. It only had the one shot. If you've never seen Firefly, guys, I highly recommend go back and check it out. And felt so bummed, right? Because it was really, honestly, guys, go back and take a look at Serenity again.
You need to watch it,
yeah. Serenity is a great movie, and it's just unfortunate. It had to introduce people to a universe that if they hadn't seen the television show, they had to follow along with it. It's so good, and I guess it just has to fit in that what it is, you know, the series and the movie, and just that's just what it is. So anyway.
But it does live on in comics right now. So Firefly, just to put that plug out there, is a series of comics that is currently still being written and produced. So
I dig it.
If you want more of that, you can live through the Brown Coats are a group that are very active in that world, and they still have comic books coming out, and they still have fanfic movies and things like that. So
awesome, very cool. Well, I'll tell you what, I think we should wrap it up because I know Paul's got to take care of some babies. And you know, you've got to just take care of yourself, Mr. James. That's what I'm telling. Take care of you and Ethan there, for goodness sake.
This is what happens. So
listen, I think it looks very chic. That's all I got to say.
Great.
Wonderful.
What do you mean? You got to take care of yourself, James.
I do.
Good stuff. Hey, all my YouTube people, thank you so much for showing up every Tuesday night. You guys are a huge blessing. I will not see you until next week, but Happy New Year for all of you. May we all have a healthy and prosperous 2021. God bless you all. That's for sure.
I should have said we're going to do a little New Year resolution segment on Thursday.
Sounds good to me. I like it.
We got to do that.
Give me that time frame so I know. You got me for 15 minutes, buddy. I'm in the same boat as you are with Jamie, where I have to go, so I have to do a thing, and then just going, what?
And I'm going to hit you up, James, about Saturday nights.
Yeah.
Listen, he's always looking for talent. That's all I'm saying, buddy.
I'm not sure what I'll learn about it, and it sounds good.
You can sing.
I do a live variety show on Saturday night, every Saturday night. And I love like going to people's houses and hearing them sing a song. And then we go to the next person. We do improv comedy.
I'll sing I'll do an Italian song or something. I don't know.
James, come on, man.
Yeah.
I tell you, he'd use you in a heartbeat. Take a look at VaudacityNetwork.com. Take a look through all the past YouTube stuff. Tons of talent on the show, and you'd be more than welcome in that rotation. Okay, YouTube folks, we're going to say our goodbyes as Paul ends our live stream. We will see you. I'll see you on New Year's Eve briefly, and we will see you later. Okay?
Bye.
Bye, gang.